Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Job Done Right podcast. Forests and grasslands can benefit from fire when it's part of a management plan. We have two guests today who will help us understand why fire is necessary and how to go about executing a prescribed burn. Retired University of Georgia Extension Director Lannie Lanier is here with us again, as is Stephen Meadows, who is with Ragan Massey and is based in South Carolina. Welcome back to the Job Done Right podcast, guys. Stephen, Lannie, great to see you both again.
Great, good to be here.
Right. Lannie, let's start with you. We're talking about prescribed burns today. Why exactly are they useful, and what acres would benefit from a prescribed burn?
A prescribed burn is the lowest cost and most effective method to control underbrush and to eliminate a fuel buildup so you can prevent a catastrophic burn in the future. Where you have places where you don't burn, you tend to develop a lot of fuel litter accumulates on the soil surface. It just builds up, whether it's straw, weeds, debris, and it just tends to accumulate. And if you do have a fire, it's almost uncontrollable. Another thing that you want to eliminate is what we call ladder fuels, and those are vines or understory trees that grow up tall into the mid-story of the forest, and a fire can creep up those ladder fuels and ignite the tops of the trees, and then you have an uncontrollable blaze. It goes from top to top. So keeping the litter under control is a very vital thing. The other thing is that the wildlife species like what we call early successional growth, which is tender plants, weeds that produce seeds. They have insects. It's great for birds. It's great for deer to graze, especially great for turkeys. What you want to do is keep the early successional growth there, eliminate the fuels that may build up and cause a catastrophic burn later. And it's also built into a lot of CRP or EQIP or conservation stewardship programs. And if you participate in those, we talked about those on a previous podcast, programs through NRCS, prescribed burning is an integral part of that program. So a lot of benefits to burning. If you haven't started the burn program, you need to take a look at one because it's very beneficial.
Now, Stephen, let's talk to you a little bit about, other than the trees and the plants, once the prescribed burn is complete, what are some other benefits you might see?
Well, the wildlife really benefit that are in that area. The small, tender regrowth that you get after the burn is going to be more palatable and nutritious, more readily available to those animals. It also can help control pests such as the white pine beetle, so the burn can be used as a pest management system. And then finally, kind of we touched on it earlier, turkeys. The turkey hunters love looking for an area if they're hunting on public land. They're looking for where the Forest Service has burned an area, because that's going to be the hot spot in the springtime. That's where the turkeys are going to be going to scratch, go bugging, and feed on that young growth that's in the area.
If I could just piggyback on that, we've had burns here on our property, and the smoke is not even cleared yet, and the turkeys move in. The ground is still smoldering, and the turkeys move in. They love it that much. It's unbelievable how much burning benefits the turkey population.
Yes, sir.
Well, we talked about this a little bit already, but when somebody wants to plan a burn, what are the first steps they should take?
First thing you need to do is to get a permit, and it depends on what state you're in. There are local laws and there are state laws that you need to comply. Here in Georgia, that's handled by the Georgia Forestry Commission. You will call and get a permit. They will ask you for some basic information. You can also apply online and get a permit online, but they'll ask you your location. They'll ask you how many acres. They'll ask you what it is that you're burning. And if the wind and the temperature and the weather conditions are right, they will issue you a permit. If the wind and the weather conditions are not good, they'll say no permit today. Call back when the weather changes. So you get the permit. That's the most important thing, to get the permit, and that alerts everyone in the system that you're about to do a burn. And they see the smoke, they'll come check. They'll send a plane, they'll fly over. I've had a lot of burns. Within 10 minutes of the smoke rides in the Forestry Commission plane that's circling the property. And they're just keeping tabs on the fire. They're doing their job, making sure that it stays safe. But you want to have your fire breaks in place. You want to have adequate personnel on hand to manage the fire. This is not a one-man operation. This is just, if it's a big area, you need to have some help. And you may want to contact your consulting forester. You may want to get with your Forestry Commission. You need to get with some other people and have a plan and have some help there so that if anything goes wrong, you've got adequate personnel there to deal with that emergency.
Good to know. And now when it comes to actually pulling off the burn, do you have any tips for when you're carrying that out?
Yes, you want to have the right weather conditions. And the ideal weather conditions would be on a day when the temperature is cold. You want a cold day because you just don't generate quite as much heat. A cold day, you want to have just a little bit of wind, maybe a 2-mile-an-hour wind, but not too much wind. You want to have some moisture in the soil a few days after a rain. You don't want to burn everything, the duff layer and the organic matter layer. You don't want to completely burn it. You want to have a mosaic of some that's really burned and some that's only slightly burned. And you don't want to burn too much because burning when it's too hot and too dry cannot be good. The other thing is, if you have about a 2-mile-an-hour wind, you will have a lot less damage to the trees, to your pines, because that 2-mile-an-hour wind, not only does it help blow out the smoke, it also helps remove a lot of the heat. If you burn on a dead, calm day, you will get more damage than you will if you burn on a day when you have a slight breeze, because on a dead, calm day, that heat just hovers and burns the needles off the trees. When you have a slight breeze, it helps blow that heat out, and you don't get nearly as much damage when you have a slight breeze. I'm not talking about a 5 or a 10-mile-an-hour wind. I'm talking about like a 2-mile-an-hour wind. That's what you're looking for.
Sure. Now, Stephen, I'd love to know if you have anything to add to that, but I also want to talk about wildlife a little bit. You touched on this earlier. Will they know to leave when you start the burn? And more importantly, when will they return? How will they know to return?
Definitely. So after you burn, like Mr. Lannie mentioned earlier, those turkeys, they're already right back in that area because they now have better access to some of the foods that they go after. But deer and squirrels and everything else, they'll feed back in, and especially in the springtime when that new tender growth comes out, those deer are going to be right in that area wanting to feed on that new growth. But you should be mindful of your timing of year. You want to do your burn in the fall through the winter. You don't want to be burning per se, especially for wildlife, in that springtime period where the deer are laying down their fawns and turkeys are laying eggs. And I was just going to say something, jumping back on the safety side of things. When you call your state forestry commission, they can give you all of the, safety again is key. And, there's particular tools that are going to make the job easier. But also help you keep control of the fire, and special types of clothing that need to be worn. And the Forestry Commission can give you all of that information as well.
Just another item along that same vein. If you burn in the month of May, which is really, really late, if you got ground nesting birds such as turkeys and quail, you tend to burn the quail and the turkey nest. So we don't like to burn in the month of May. That's really late. But on the other hand, if you have some undesirable species that you want to try to burn, you get a better kill on some of those undesirable larger tree species when you burn in the summer. So if you do burn in the summer, wait until June, July to try to burn to kill some of those other species, because you've given all your ground nesting birds plenty of time to hatch, and their broods are up and they're out and they're moving. So you probably would not be damaging any ground nesting bird nest if you burn later in the summer. But that month of May, early June, that's a dangerous time. We want to try to keep the fire out in the month of May.
Well, I know we could keep talking about this for a while. Is there anything else you guys want to add about prescribed burns?
Yes. Yeah, you can put out the fire, but what do you do about the smoke? That's a whole nother issue. And in Georgia, when you get your permit, they tell you that you need to have the fire out by dark, because you've got smoke and then you've got dark. It can make for hazardous conditions if you're close to a major highway or if you're close to an urban development. So smoke, not only do you have to worry about the fire, but you have to worry about the smoke. And you want to pick a day when you have a high cloud cover. If you have an overcast day and you burn, you trap that smoke close to the surface, and it doesn't dissipate and blow out like you want it to. So smoke management is a major part of a prescribed burn, and you need to have a plan for that before you start.
Good to know. Thanks for adding that, and thank you both for your time today. A lot of helpful advice for everyone listening in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
For more questions and answers about prescribed burns and land management, visit the advice section of raganandmassey.com. You can also visit the Ragan and Massey channel on YouTube for informative videos. Make sure to subscribe to the Job Done Right podcast and tell your friends. If you have questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, please let us know. Share them with us through raganandmassey.com or on social media. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Job Done Right podcast.